Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Melissa, and if you're new here, welcome to my channel where I speak about different topics. Do not mind my hoodie. I am in my apartment and it is cold as ice inside my apartment. No, I will not put the heater on because I will get hot. My heater gets hot really quick and I just don't like the heat or the cold weather. I am picky. So today we're going to be talking about hate crime. Today's case that I will be talking about really hits hard. It involves a child. His name is Emmett Till. This case was one of those cases that when I decided to start doing hate crimes, to talk about hate crimes, this is one of those cases that I really wanted to do. This case was just heartbroken. Y'all will hear the story and let me know in the description, in the comments below, what y'all think. So let's just go ahead and get started. So Emmett Till was born to Mamie and Louis Till on July 25th of 1941 in Chicago. Emmett's mother, Mimi, was born in the small Delta town of West Mississippi. The Delta region encompassed the largest multiple county area of northwest Mississippi and the watershed of the Hoosac and Mississippi rivers. When Caitlin was 2 years old, her family moved to Augur, Illinois, near Chicago, as part of the Great Migration of rural black families out of the South to the North, to escape the violence, lack of opportunity, and unequal treatment under the law. Augur received so many Southern immigrants that it was named Little Mississippi. Catherine's mother home was often used by other resident immigrants as a situation while they were trying to find jobs and housing. Mississippi was the poorest state in the USA in the 1950s, and Delta counties were some of the poorest in Mississippi. Mimi Catherine was born in Tallahatchie County, where the average income per white houses in 1949 was $690. For black families, the figure was $442. In the rural area, so basically white people made more money than black people did. That's exactly what they're saying. In the rural areas, economy opportunities for blacks were almost non-existent. There were mostly sharp cutters who lived on land owned by whites. Blacks had essentially been disenfranchised and excluded from voting in the political state system since 1890, when the white-dominated legalization passed a new constitution. The race varies to voter recitation. Whites had also passed an indigenous establishment, radical segregation, and Jim Crow laws. Mimi allegedly raised Emmett with her mother. She and Louis Till separated in 1942 after Mimi discovered that he had been unfaithful. That was common back then. I mean, it's common now, but back then you could have probably gotten away. Well, see, the thing is, back then, if your husband was cheating on you, there was no questions, depending on your religion. I am assuming, but I heard that with the Catholic religion, if you knew your husband was cheating, you were not allowed to divorce. You had to sit there and be okay with it. So, yeah. For violating court orders to stay away from Mimi, Louis Till was forced by a judge in 1943 to choose between jail or enlisted in the USA Army. And in 1945, a few weeks before his son's 4th birthday, Louis Till was court-martialed and executed in Italy for the murder of an Italy woman and the rape of 2 others. At the age of 6, Emmett contracted polio, which left him in a persistent shatter. Mimi and Emmett moved to Detroit, where she met and married Pink Burley in 1951. Emmett preferred living in Chicago, so he returned there to live with his grandmother. His mother and stepfather rejoined him later that year. After the marriage dissolved in 1952, Pinky Burley returned alone to Detroit. Mimi Till, Brandy, and Emmett lived together as Busy's neighborhood in Chicago South Side near distant relatives. She began working on a civilian clerk for the USA Air Force for a better salary. She recalled that Till was industrious enough to help with the chores at home, although he sometimes got distracted. Till's mother remembered that he did not know his own limitations at times. Following the couple's separation, Braley visited Mimi and began threatening her. At 11 years old, Till, with a butcher knife in hand, told Braley he would kill him if the man did not leave. Till was typically happy, however, and he and his cousins, friends, pulled pranks on each other. Till once advantage of an extended car ride with his friend, fall asleep and placed the friend's underwear in his bed, and they also spend their free time picking up baseball games. Titi was a smart dresser and was often the center of attention among his peers. And if you see a picture of him, he is just the cutest little young man ever. He wears his hat. To me, he was I feel like he was an old soul. Like, he was a child, but with an old soul inside. Like, he was just like, he wanted to dress like he dressed like he was going to church every single time. I think that was just looking at his picture makes it so heartbreaking, because I know that if he was still living, he would have become something. He would have been something important in this world. But we'll talk about his death. So, plans to visit relatives in Mississippi. In 1955, Mimi Till Brady, uncle, 64-year-old Mose Wright, visited her and Emmett in Chicago during the summer and told him stories about living in Mississippi Delta. Emmett wanted to see for himself. Wright planned to accompany Till with a cousin, Willard Parker, and another cousin, Curtis Jones, would join them soon after. Brady was a sharecropper and part-time minister who was often called preacher. He lived in Money, Mississippi, at a small town in Delta that consisted of 3 stores, a school, a post office, a cotton gin, and a few hundred residents 8 miles north of Greenwood. Before Till departed for the Delta, his mother contained him that Chicago and Mississippi were 2 different worlds, and he should know how to behave in front of white people in the South. Till assured her that he understood. And I think this is the thing that is so important in this story. In Chicago, yes, there were still, the whole black and white people situation. But in Mississippi, I think in Chicago it was not as bad as it was in Mississippi. In Mississippi, it was still every corner, anywhere you went, you had to make sure that if you saw a white person, you were an African American, you walked the other way. You don't look at them. You don't say anything to them. And it sucks because I have an attitude, and I would have not made it back then. But if they say something to you, they called you a racist or whatever these white people called you, or black, or they mistreated you, you had to stand there and take the heat. You had to stand there and take the disrespect, because white people basically owned everything. They owned it. They didn't, but in their crazy mind, they did. So, staticus and lynchings began to be collected in 1982. Since that time, more than 500 Americans had been killed by extrajudicial violence in Mississippi alone, and more than 300 across the South. Most of the indications took place between 1876 and 1930. Though far less common by the mid-1950s, these radical motivated murders still occurred. Throughout the South, interracial relationships were prohibited as means to maintain white supremacy. So basically, back then, you were not allowed to date out of your race, which really sucks because I still think it happens today. My daughter's dad, he's half Mexican and half black. I'm Dominican and black, and when I started dating him, most of my family was just like, they didn't like it. they did not like the fact that I was dating a black person. Mind y'all, let me repeat myself, I'm Dominican and black. But they wanted me to stay, they wanted me to marry in my culture, like they wanted me to marry a Dominican. Because I think most of my, I am the only one that is not married to a Dominican. But you don't tell me what to do, so yeah, not work. Even in the suggestion of sexual conduct between black men and white women could carry several penalties for black men. A resource of the enforcement of such Jim Crow laws was evident following World War II, when an African American veteran started pressing for equal rights in the South. And let me just put it out there. There are cases of a black and a white man. I mean, a black woman and a white man getting married. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. And I really do think that why would your family want you to marry inside your race? I would not want to marry a Dominican. I'm sorry. I said what I said. Not happening. See, guys, now I'm goddamn hot. Radical tension increased after the United States Supreme Court in 1954. Division in Brown versus Board of Education to end segregation in public education, which is ruled unconditionally. Many segregations believe the ruling would lead to interracial dating and marriage. White strongly resisted the court's ruling. One Virginia county closed all the public schools to prevent integration. Other jurisdictions simply ignored the ruling. In other ways, white used stronger measurement to keep black political different races which they had been since the turn of the century. Segregation in the South was used to constrain blacks forcefully from any semblance of society equality. A week before Till arrived in Mississippi, a black activist named Lamar Smith was shot and killed in front of the county courthouse in Brookhaven for political organizing. 3 white suspects were arrested, but they were soon released. And that's another thing that I'm telling you, white people, if you want to call white people privileged, that is what white privilege is. These white people could kill an African American for no reason, and they do not get nothing. They don't get no punishment, nothing at all. And before I go on with the story, if you are a racist person, do not sit here and comment anything in this video, because I will block you. I won't even reply back. I will block you. I am an African American. I'm Afro-Latina. I am Dominican, and I hate racist people. I'm allergic to racist people, and if y'all say something, I will block y'all, because I'm not fixing to lose my YouTube arguing with racist people like y'all. Ask my daughter. I will do it. Yeah. Okay. So Till arrived at home of the most in Elizabeth Wright in Money, Mississippi. Does Money, Mississippi still exist? Can you let me know? On August 21st of 1955. On the evening of August 24th, T.T. and several young relatives in neighborhoods were driving by his cousins Maurice Wright to Brennan groceries and meat market to buy candy. Till's companions were children of shape groups and had been picked cotton all day. The market mostly served the local sharecropper population and was owned by a white couple, 24-year-old Roy Brand and his 21-year-old wife, Carolyn. I need y'all to put that name in your head, because it's going to come back and hunt y'all, especially Miss Carolyn. The facts of what took place in the store are still disputed. Journalist William Bedford-Huey reported that Till showed the youngest outside the store a photograph of a white girl in his wallet and bragged that this was his girlfriend. Mind y'all, Till, he is a kid and he likes to joke around. Yes, when he was in Chicago, his friends will laugh at it because they know who he is. In Mississippi, it's a whole different story. That's why his mom said what she said. Till's cousin Curtis Jones said the photograph was of an integrated class at the school Till attended in Chicago. According to Huey and Jones, one or more of the local boys then dared Till to speak to Brennan. However, in his 2009 book, Till's cousin Simon Bride, who was present, dispute the accounts of Huey and Jones. According to Reed, Till did not have a photo of a white girl, and nobody dared him to flirt with Brennan. Speaking in 2015, Burroughs said, quote, "We didn't dare him to go to the store. The white folks said that. They said that he had a picture of his white girlfriend. There was Janelle. Sorry, guys. There was. They never talked to me. They never interviewed me." The FBI report completely in 2006 notes. Curtis Jones recanted his 1955 statement prior to his death and apologized to Mimi Till Molly. I hate white people. Not all of them, because I have some white friends, but according to both Simon Bright and Wheeler Parker, Till Wolf whistled at Brennan. Wright said, "I think Emmett wanted to get a laugh out of us or something," adding, "He was always joking around. It was hard to tell when he was serious." Wright stated that following the whistle, he became immediately alarmed. "Well, it scared us half to death." Wright recalled, "We were almost in shock. We couldn't get out of there fast enough because we had never heard anything like that before. A black boy whistling at a white woman in the Mississippi? No," Bright stated. "The Ku Klux Klan and night riders were part of our daily lives." Following his disappearance, a newspaper account stated that Till sometimes whistled to elevate his stuttering. His speech was sometimes unclear. Mimi said he had particularly difficult with pronouncing the B sound, and he may have whistled to overcome problems asking for bubble gum. She said that to help with his irrigation, Mimi taught Till how to whistle softly to himself before pronouncing his words. During the murder trial, Brand testified that Till grabbed her hand while she was sticking candy and said, "How about a day, baby?" Brennan said that after she freed herself from his grasp, Till followed her to the cash register, grabbed her wrist, and said, What's the matter, baby? Can you take it?" Brennan said she fret herself, and Till said, "You don't need to be afraid of me, baby," used uncomparable word, and said, I have been with the white woman before." Brennan also alleged that one of Till's companions came into the store, grabbed him by the arm, and ordered him to leave. According to historian Timothy Thompson, Bryant admitted to him in 2008 NTV that her testimony during the trial that Till had made verbal physical events was false. Bryant had testified Till grabbed her wrist and uttered obscenities, but later told Timpson that part was not true. As for the rest of what happened, the 72-year-old stated she could not remember. Bryant is quoted by Timpson as saying, "Nothing the boy did could ever justify what happened to him." However, the tape recording that Timpson made of the interview with Bryant do not contain Bryant saying this. In addition, Bryant's daughter-in-law, who was present during Timpson's interview, said that Bryant never said it. Decades later, Simpson Wright also challenged the account given by Carolyn Brennan at the trial. Wright claims he entered the store less than a minute after Till was left inside alone with Bryant. He saw no interpreter behavior and heard no Lyncher's conversation. Wright said Till paid for his items and we left the store together. And there, in 2006, investigators of the cold case, the FBI noted that the second anonymous source, who was confirmed to have been in the store at the same time as Till and his cousin, support Wright account. Arthur Devender Anderson writes that in an interview with defense attorneys, Brian told a version of intentional encounter that included Till grabbing her hand and asking her for a date, but not Till approaching her and grabbing her wrist, mentioning past relationships with white women or having to be dragged unwillingly out of the store by another boy. Anderson further notes that many remarks prior to Till's kidnap made by those involved indicated that it was his remarks to Brian that angered his killers rather than alleged physical harassment. For instance, Moses Wright, a witness to the kidnapping, said that the kidnappers mentioned only talked at the store, and Sheriff George Smith only spoke of the arrest, killer accusing Till of ugly remarks. Anderson suggests that this evidence taken together in place then that the more extreme details of Brian's story was invented after the fact as part of the defense legal strategy. After Bright and Tills left the store, Brian went outside to retrieve a pistol from underneath the seat of a car. Till and his companion saw her do this and left immediately. It was acknowledged that Till whistled while Brian was going to her car. However, one witness reserved Crawford maintained that Till whistle was directly not at Ryan but at the Checkers game that was taking place outside the store. Carolyn's husband, Roy Ryan, was on an extended trip hauling shrimp to Texas and did not return home until August 27th. Historian Timothy Thompson said, investigation by civil rights activists conclude Carolyn Bryan did not intentionally tell her husband, Roy, about the encounter with Till, and Roy was told by a person who frequented their store. Roy was reportedly angry at his wife for not telling him. Carolyn Bryan told the FBI she did not tell her husband because she feared he would assault Till. That is a line. But whatever. So when Roy was informed of what happened, he aggressively questioned several young black men who entered the store that evening. Brian, with a black man named J.W. Washington, approached a black teenager walking along a road. Brian ordered Washington to side the boy, put him in the back of the pickup truck, and took him to define by a companion of Carolyn's who had witnessed the episode with Till. Friends and parents vouched for the boy in Brian's store. Carolyn's companion denied that the boy Brian in Washington's size was one who had accosted her. Somehow Brian learned that the boy in the accident was from Chicago and was staying with Moses Wright. Several witnesses overheard Brian and his 46-year-old half-brother John J. William Milling discussing taking Till from his house. In the early morning hours of August 28 of 1955, sometime between 2 to 3 a.m., Brian and Milling drove to Moses Wright's house armed with a pistol and flashlight. He asked Wright if he had 3 boys in the house from Chicago. Till was sharing a bed with another cousin, and there were a total of 8 people in the cabinet. Millie asked Wright to take them to the nigger who did the talking. Till's great aunt offered the man money, but Millie refused as he rushed Emmett to put in his clothes. Moses Wright informed the man Till was from up north and did not know any better. Millie reportedly then asked, "How old are you, preacher?" To which Wright responded, 64. Molina threatened that if Wright told anybody, he would not live to see 65. The man merged Till out of the truck. Wright said he heard them ask someone in the car if this was the boy and heard someone said yes. When asked if the voice what was of the man or woman, Ryan said that it seemed like it was a lighter voice than a man. In a 1956 interview with Look magazine in which they confessed to the killing, Brian and Millie said they would have brought Till by the store in order to have Carolyn define him, but stated that they did not do so because they said Till admitted to being the one who had talked to her. Millie and Brian teed up Till in the back of the green pickup truck and drove towards Money, Mississippi. According to some witnesses, they took Till back to Brian's groceries and recruited 2 black men. The man that drove to Barn indoor pistol whipping Till on the way and reportedly knocked him unconscious. Will Reed was 18 years old at the time, saw the truck passing by, and later recalled seeing 2 white men in the front seat and 2 black males in the back. Some have speculated that the 2 black men worked for Millie and were forced to help with the beating, although they later denied being present. Willie Reed said that while walking home, he heard the beating and crying from a barn. Reed told a neighbor they both walked back up the road to a water well near the barn, where they were approached by Millie, and Millie asked if they heard anything. Reed responded, "No." Others passed by a shade and hearing yelling. A local neighborhood also spotted 2 high Leroy Collins at the back of the barn washing blood off the truck and noticed Till's boot. Millie explained he had killed a deer and that boots belonged to him. Some sorry, deers don't scream. So I don't know how the hell you came up with that damn solution. Somebody heard screams and you come up with the, oh, I killed the deer. Okay. Some have claimed that Till was shot and tossed over the Black Bayou Bridge in Clarendon, Mississippi, near the Tallahatchie River. The group drove back to Rose Ryan's home in Minnie, where they reportedly burned Till's clothes. An interview with William Bedford Huey that was published in Look magazine in 1956, Brian and Millie said that they intended to beat Till and throw him off an embankment into the river to frighten him. They told Huey that while they were beating Till, he called them bastards, declared he was as good as they were, and said that he had sexual encounters with white women. They put Till in the back of their truck and drove to Cotton Green to take a 70-pound fan. That only time they admit to being worried, thinking that by this time in early daylight they would be spotted and accused of stealing, and drove for several miles along the river looking for a place to dispose of Till. They shot him by the river and weighted his body with the fan. So y'all were so worried about getting caught stealing a fan during the day, but not killing a child. Okay. Moses Wright stayed on his front porch for 20 minutes, waiting for Till to return. He did not go back to bed. Red and another man went into Money, got gasoline, and drove around unsuccessfully trying to find Till. They had returned home by 8 a.m. after hearing from Wright that he would not call the police because he feared for his life. Curtis Jones placed a call to the Lefter County Sheriff and another to his mother in Chicago, demonstrating she called Emmett's mother, Mimi Till Brady. Wright and his wife Elizabeth drove to Summer, and Elizabeth's brother contacted the sheriff. Brian and Millie were questioned by Lefter County Sheriff George Smith. They admit that they had taken the boy from his great-uncle's yard, but claimed that they had released him the same night in front of the Burns store. Brian and Millie were arrested for kidnapping. Word got out that Till was missing, and soon merged Everest, Mississippi State Field Security from the National Association for Advancement of Colored People and Mies Moore heard of the NAACP Boulevard County chapter became involved. They discussed themselves at cotton pickers and went into the cotton fields in search of any information that may help find Till. 3 days after his abduction and murder, Till's swollen and disfigured body was found by two boys who were fishing in the Tallahatchie River. His head was very badly mutilated. He had been shot above the right ear, and eyes were dislodged from the socket. There was evidence that he had been beaten on the back and hips, and his body weight by a fan blend fastened around his neck with the barbed wire. Till was nude but not wearing a silver ring with the initial LT in May 25th of 1953 carved in it. His face was unrecognizable due to the trauma and having been submerged in water. Mose Wright was called to the river to identify Till. The silver ring that Till was wearing was removed, returned to Wright, and passed on to his district attorney as evidence. Although Landry's and Ridicule motive murders had occurred throughout the South for decades, the circumstances surrounding Till's murder, the timing act as a catalyst of attract national attention to the case of a 14-year-old boy who allegedly been killed for breathing a social caste system. Till's murder arose feelings about segregation law, enforcement relations between the North and the South. The society status, quote, Mississippi, the actives of the NAACP and the White Citizen Council in the Cold War, all of which were played out in the drama stage and newspaper all over the USA and abroad. After Till went missing, a 3-paragraph story was printed, the Greenwood Commonwealth, and quickly picked up by other Mississippi newspapers. They report on his death when the body was found. The next day, when a picture of him and his mother had taken the previous Christmas showing them smiling together. appeared into Jackson Daily News and Veritable Evening Post. Editors and letters to the editor were printed expressing shame that the people who had caused Till's death won read. Now it's time for every citizen who loves the state of Mississippi to stand up and be counted before hoodlum white trash bring us to destruction. The letter said that Negroes were not the downfall of Mississippi society, but the whites like those in White Citizens Counseling that condone violence. Till's body was clothed, packed, and limed, placed into a pine coffin, and prepared for burial. It may have been immortal while in Mississippi. Mimi Till Brady demanded that the body be sent to Chicago. She later said that she worked to a halt and immediately burial in Mississippi and called several locals and state authorities in Illinois and Mississippi to make sure that her son was returned to Chicago. A doctor did not examine Till postmortem. Mississippi Governor Hugh L. White deplored the murder as arresting the local authorities should pursue Veroni's prosecution. He sent a telegram to the national office of the NAACP promising a full investigation and assuring them Mississippi does not condone such conduct. Delta residents, both black and white, also distanced themselves from Till's murder, finding the circumstances abhorrent. Local newspaper editors demolished the murders without question. Lafayette County Deputy Sheriff John Corden stated that white people around here feel pretty mad about the way that the poor little boy was treated and that they won't stand for this. However, disclosure about Till's murder soon became more complex. Robert B. Peterson, exclusive security of the Segregation White Citizen Council, used Till's death to claim that regional segregation police were to provide for black safety and that this effort were being neutralized by the NAACP. In response, the NAACP exclusive security Rod Wilkins characterized that accident and launching said that the Mississippi was trying to maintain white supremacy through murder. He said that there in the entire state no restraining influence of the scenes, not in the state capital among the daily newspaper, the clerk, nor any semen of so-called better citizen. Mimi Till Brady told the report that she would seek legal aid to help law enforcement find her son killers and that the state of Mississippi should share the financial responsibility. That she misquoted it was reported as a Mississippi going to pay for this. Okay, guys, do not go. If you want to read more about this case, I suggest you do not look at this. So his mom, because of his state and the state that his body was found and his face was swollen, usually you're supposed to have, especially in a child, caskets are closed, but his mom is like, no, I want my child's casket to be open. I want people to see what they did to my child. So if you go look at it, I'm warning you. The A.A. Renner Funeral Home in Chicago received Till's body upon arrival, barely insist on viewing it to make a positive identification, later stating that the snatch from it was noticeable 2 blocks away. She decided to have an open casket funeral, saying, "There was just no way I could describe what was in the box. No way. And I just want the world to see." Tens of thousands of people lined in the street outside the mortuary to view Till's body, and days later, thousands more attended his funeral at Rival's Temple Church of God in Christ. Photographs of Till's mutilated corpse circulated around the county, Noble appearing in J Magazine, the Chicago Defender, both black publications, generating insane public reaction according to the Nation. In Newsweek's Chicago black community was absurd as it has not been over any similar act in recent history. Time later, it selected one of the jet photographs showing Mimi Till over the mutilated body of her dead son as one of the 100 most influential images of all time. For almost a century, African Americans were lynched with regularity and impunity. Now, thanks to a mother, their mutation to expose the barness of a crime, the public could no longer pretend to ignore what they couldn't see. And on September 6th, Till was buried in a Prairie Oak Cemetery in Isley, Illinois. News about Emmett Till spread to both coasts. Chicago Major Rich D. Lay and Illinois government William Shatter also became involved, using Mississippi Governor White to see the justice was done. The tongue in Mississippi newspaper changed dramatically. They falsely reported riots in the funeral home in Chicago. Brian and Millie appear in photos smiling and wearing military uniforms, and Carly and Brian Beauty and Victoria Rexor rumors of intimidation of outrage. Blacks and northern whites were printed throughout the state and were taken seriously by the left floor county sheriffs T.R.M. Howard, a local businessman, surgeon, and civil rights prominent, and one of the wealthiest black people in the state, warned of a second civil war if struggling of Negroes were allowed. Following Roy Rinkin's comments, white opinion began to shift. According to historian Stephen J. Wistfully, a specific brand of xenophobia in the South was particularly strong in Mississippi. Whites were urged to reflect in the influence of Northern opinion in the nation. This independent attitude was profound enough to Tallahatchie County that it earned the nickname the Free State of Tallahatchie, according to a former sheriff, because people here do not do what they damn well please, making the county often difficult to govern. Tallahatchie County Sheriff Clarence Streicht, who intelligently possibility and defined Till's body, and state that the case against Millie and Brian was pretty good, and on September 3 announced his doubts that the body pulled from the Tallahatchie River was that of Till. Who else's body was gonna be? The preacher said yes, that's him, and the mother said that was her child. That's what people don't think. Where the hell was that? He speculated the body was probably still alive. Oh wait. And so on September 3rd, he announced his doubt that the body pulled from Tallahatchie River was of Till. He speculated that the boy was probably still alive. Stitter suggests that the recovered body had been planned by the NAACP, a corpse stolen by the T.R.M. Howard, who calculated to place Till ring on it. Stitter challenged his account after comments were published in the press denigrating the people of Mississippi, later saying, "The last thing I want to do was defend those Puckett Woods, but I just had no choice about it." Brian and Millie were indicted for murder. The state prosecution attorney Hamilton Caldwell was not confident that he would get a conviction in a case of white violence against a black male accused of assaulting a white woman. A local black paper was surprised, and they indicated and praised in the decision, as they did the New York Times. The high-profile comment published in the North newspaper and by the NAACP were of concern to the prosecuting attorney, Gaylor Garthen. He worried that his office would not be able to secure a guilty verdict despite the compelling evidence having limited funds. Brian and Millie intentionally have difficult finding attorneys to represent them, but 5 attorneys at a summer law firm offer their service pro bono. Their supporters place a collection jars in stores and other public places in Delta, eventually gathering $10,000 for the defense. So the trial was held in the county courthouse in Summer, the western sea of Tallahatchie County, because Till's body was found in this area. Summer had one boarding house in the small town, was besieged by reporters from all over the county. David Humber called the trial the first great media event of the civil rights movement. A reporter who had covered the trial at Bruno Hamilton, a machine gun carrier, remarked that this was the most publicly for any trial he had ever seen. No hotels were open to black visitors. Mimi Till Burnley arrived to testify in the trial, also attacked black Congressman Charles Dixon from Michigan, Burley Diggs, and several black reporters stayed at TRM Howard's home in Mon Bayou, located in a large lot and surrounded by Howard's armed guards and resemble and compound. The day before they started the trial, a young black man named Frank Young arrived to tell Howard he knew of two witnesses to the crime, Levy Too Tight, Collins Henry Lee Lugans, were black employees of Lisa Millie J. W.'s brother, and who Shell Teal was beating. Collins and Lugans were spotted with J.W. Millie, Bryant, until the prosecution team was unaware of Collins and Lugans. Sheriff Strider, however, booked them into the Charleston, Mississippi jail to keep them from testifying. The trial was held in September 1955 and last 5 days. Attended remembered that the weather was very hot. The courtroom was filled to capacity with 280 spectators. Black attendants sat in the segregated section. Press from major national newspaper attending, including black politicians. Black reporters were required to sit in the segregated black section and away from the white press, further from the jury. Sheriff's stripes welcomed black spectators coming back from lunch with the cheerful hello Negroes. Some visitors from North found the court to be run with surprising information. Jury members were allowed to drink beer on duty, and many white male spectators were handguns. So now, if you don't get some of them, I'll help you when I'm done. Sorry, guys. My daughter's trying to do her math homework. Oh, you're done? Oh, never mind. What? Jurors were allowed to drink a beer. Just imagine being in court and you see a juror drinking a beer. I thought I heard everything, but I guess not. The defense sought that cast doubt in the identity of the body pulled from the river. They said it could not be possibly defined, and they questioned whether Till was dead at all. The defense also started that although Brian and Millie had taken Till from his great-uncle's house, they had released him that night. The defense attorney attempted to prove that Moses Wright, who was addressed as Uncle Moses by the prosecution and Moses by the defense, could not define Brian and Millie and the man who took Till from his cabinet. They know that the only Millie flashlight had been used in that night, and no other lights in the house were turned on. Millie and Brian had defined themselves to Wright in the evening they took Till. Wright said he had only seen Millie clearly. Wright's testimony was considered remarkable, courageous, and may have been the first time in the South that a black man had testified to the guilt of a white man in court and life. Journalism James Hikes, who worked for the Black News Wire service in the National Negro Publishers Association, was present in the courtroom. He was especially impressed that Wright stood to a defined Millie, pointing to him, saying, "There he is," calling his historical moment one filled with electricity. A writer for the New York Post noted that the following his definition, Wright said with a large wish told better than anything else, the cost and strength to him of the thing he had done. A reporter who covered the trial for the New Orleans Times said, "It was the most dramatic thing I saw in my career." So the reason they're saying this is because back then, if a white person went or killed an African American and another African American saw the person that did it, they were terrified to even come forward and say that was a person, because they knew that if they opened their mouth, their lives was in danger. Millie Till Braley testified that she had introduced her son to watch his manor in Mississippi, and that should a situation ever come to his being, asked to get on his knee to ask forgiveness of a white person. I'm sorry. Let me tell you. I would not make it back then, because I'm not. Excuse me. Get on my knees to apologize to who? The only person I'm ever getting on my knees to apologize is God, and God only. Not no, not doing it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. He should do it without a thought. The defense questioned her identification of her son in the casket in Chicago and a $400 life insurance policy she had taken out of him. While the trial process left Leaflore County Sheriff George Smith Howard and some reports both black and white attended local Collins and Loggins. They could not but found 3 witnesses who had seen Collins and Loggins with Millie and Brian in Celia Millie's property. 2 of them testified that they heard someone being beaten, blows, and cries. One testified so quietly that the judge ordered him several times to speak louder. He said he heard the victim call out, "Mama, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy." Sheriff Stride testified for the defense of his theory that Till was alive and that the body retrieved from the river was a white. A doctor from Greenswood said on the stand that the body was too decomposed to define and therefore had been in water too long for Till. No, it was not. If y'all could look at the picture, you could obviously see that it was not decomposed. You could see his face. His face was so... Guys, I'm telling y'all, if y'all don't have the stomach to deal with these type of pictures, do not go look at it. Because I've seen the picture and it's just... It's just... No, I won't even show it here. Carolyn Brand was allowed to testify in court, but because Judge Curtis swung and ruled in favor of the prosecution objection that her testimony was irrelevant to Till's addiction and murder, the jury was not present. In the event that the defense were convicted, the defense wanted her testimony on record to aid as a possible appeal. In the concluding statement, one prosecuting attorney said that what Till did was wrong, but that his action warranted a spanking, not murder. Gerling Glampton poisonally called for justice, mocked the sheriff's and doctor's statement that alluded to a conspiracy. Mimi barely indicated she was very impressed with his submission. The defense stated that the prosecution theory of the events that night Till was murdered was improbable and said the jury's furthers would turn over in their graves if they convict Brian and Millie. Only 3 outcomes were possible in Mississippi for a capital murder: life imprisonment, the death penalty, or acquittal. And on September 23, the all-white, all-male jury acquitted both Millie and Brian. After 67 minutes deliberation, one juror said, "If we hadn't stopped to drink pop, it would have been taking that long." Oh my God. I can't. So both women in black, they have been banned. They were not allowed to be in the jury. Why? I'm not surprised. In post-trial analysis, the blame for the outcome varied. Mimi Till was criticized for not crying enough on the stand. What? The jury was known to have been picked almost exclusively from the Hill County section of Tallahassee County shaped due to his poor economy. Makeup found whites and blacks competing for land and other agrarian opportunities. Unlike the population living closer to the river and those closest to Brian and Millie's Lefter County, who posit in Northwest Abolitional outlook towards black, according to historian Stephen Richaker. Those in the eastern part of the country were violating in their races. The prosecution was criticized for dismissing any potential juror who knew Millie or Brian personally for fear that such a juror would vote to acquittal. Afterwards, Richaker noted that this had been a mistake, as those who knew the defenders usually disliked them. One juror voted twice to convict, but on the third execution vote with the rest of the jury to acquit. In later interviews, the jurors acknowledged that they knew Brian and Millie were guilty, but simply did not believe the life imprisonment or the death penalty were fit punishment for the whites who had killed a black man. However, 2 jurors said as late as 2005 that they believed the defense case. They also said that the prosecution had not proven that Till had died, nor it was his body that were removed from the river. Who body else was it? Are y'all on crack? This is why y'all should not ever let jurors drink while y'all trying to commit two people that should have been put to death. They should have been put to death. I don't believe in the death penalty. I used to, but with what they did to this child, these two trash should have been pulled to death, and it should have been a punishment worse than what they did to this little innocent boy. I said what I said, and I'm not taking it back. In November 1955, a grand jury declined to indict Brian and Millie for kidnapping despite their own admission of having taken Till. Most write a young man named Willie Reed, who testified to see Millie enter the shade from which screams blows were heard. Both testified in front of the grand jury. After the trial, T.R.M. Howard paid the cost of relocating Chicago for Wright, Reed, and another black witness who testified against Millie and Brian in order to protect the three witnesses from reprisal for having testified. Reed, who later changed his name to William Lewis to avoid being found, continued to live in Chicago area until his death in July 18, 2013. He avoided publicly and even kept his history secret from his wife until she was told by relatives. Reed began to speak publicly about the case in the Peace BC documentary The Murder of Emmett Till, which was podcast in 2003. Newspaper, major international citizens, as well as religions and society publications report outrage about the verdict and strong criticism of American society. While southern newspapers, particularly in Mississippi, wrote that the court system had done his job, Till's story continued to make news for weeks following the trial, speaking debate in newspaper among the NAACP and various high-profiling segregation about justice for blacks and property of Jimmy Crow society. In October 1955, the Jackson Daily News reported facts about Till's father that had been suppressed by the U.S. State military while serving in Italy. Louis Till was court material for the rape of two women, then killing a third. He was found guilty and executed by hanging by the army near Peace in July of 1995. Mimi Till Brady and her family know of this, having been told that Lewis had been killed for willful misconduct. Mississippi Senator James Stanley and John C. Tennis probed Army records and revealed Louis Till crimes. Although Emmett Till murder trial was over, news about his father was carried on the front page of Mississippi newspaper for weeks in October and November of 1955. This renewed data about Emmett Till actions incarnates Brian intensity. Stephen Whitfield writers that the lack of attention paid to a define in finding Till is strange compared to the amount of published disclosed about his father. According to historian Davis Hawk and Matthew Greening, Louis Till became the most important heretical pawn in the high-stakes game of North, various South Black, various white NAACP, various white citizen counseling. In 2016, reviewing the facts of the rapes, murder for which Louis Till had been executed, John Edgar Willman posts that given the timing of the publicity about Emmett's father, although the defense had already confessed to taking Emmett from his uncle's house, the post-murder trial grand jury refused to even indicting them for kidnapping. Whitman also suggests that the conviction and punishment of Louis Till may have been radical motive for referring to his trial as a kangaroo court material. Prosecutor against double jeopardy, Brian and Millie struck a deal with the Lock magazine in 1956 to tell their stories to journalism William Barefoot Hurley for between $360,000 and $400,000. The interview took place in the law firm of the attorneys who had defended Brian and Millie, who they did not ask the questions Brian and Millie's own attorney did. Neither attorney had heard their client's account of the murder before. According to he, the older Millie was more articulated and sure of himself than the younger Brian. Millie admits to shooting Till. Neither of them believed they were guilty or they had done anything wrong. Reaction to Huey's interview with Brian and Millie was explosive. Their Brahms admission that they had murdered Till accused permitted civil rights leaders to push the federal government harder to investigate the case. Till's murder contributed to the confrontational passages of the Civil Rights Act of 1957, authorized the USA Department of Justice to interfere local law enforcement issues with individual civil rights were being compromised. Huey's interview, in which Millie and Brian said that they had acted alone, overshadowed Constance's earlier version of the story. As a consequence, details about others who had possibly been involved in Till's abduction and murder or the Quasins cover-up were forgotten, according to historian David and Linda Beale. Till's murder increased fears in the local black community that they would be subject to violence and the law would not protect them, according to Dolores Melton Gresham, whose father was killed a few months after Till. At the time, they used to say it's open season on killing get away with. It's open season to kill Negroes. After Brian and Millie admit to Huey that they had killed Till, they support base of two men era on Mississippi. Many of their former friends and supporters, including those who had contributed to their defense funds, cut them off. Black boycott their shops, which went bankrupt and closed, and the banks refused to grant them loans to plant crops. After struggling to resort a loan, find someone who could rent to him, Millie managed to secure a 217 acres and a 4,000 loan to plant cotton, but blacks refused to work with him. Millie was forced to pay whites higher wages. Eventually, Millie and Brian relocated to Texas, but their infamy followed them. They continued to generate amousine from locals. In 1961, while in Texas, when Brian recognized the license plate of a Tallahassee County resident, he called out a greeting and defending himself. The resident, upon hearing the name, drove away without speaking to Brian. After several years, they returned to Mississippi. Millie found work in a heavy equipment operator, but ill health forced him into retirement over the years. Millie was tried for offenses including assault, battery, writing bad checks, and using a stolen credit card. He died of a spinal cancer on December 31st, 1980, at the age of 61. And I hope you're burning in hell, sir. Brian worked as a welder while in Texas. Unit increasing blindness forced him to give up his employment. At some point, he and Carolyn divorced. He remarried in 1980. Brian opened a store in Villian, Mississippi. He was convicted in 1984 and in 1988 of food stamps fraud. And in 1985, interviewed Brian denied killing Till despite having admitted to it in 1956. But said if Emmett Till hadn't got out of line, he probably wouldn't have happened to him. Fearing comment boycott and stealing, Brian lived in a private life and refused to be photographed or reveal the exact location of his store, explaining this new generation is different and I don't want to worry about a bullet some dark night. He died of cancer on September 1st of 1944 at the age of 63. And I hope you're burning in hell, sir. Millie Till married Gene Bolin, became a teacher, and changed her surname to Till Molly. She continued to educate people about her son, murdered in 1962. Till Molly had the opportunity to listen while Brian was interviewed about his environment in Till's murder. With Brian unaware that Till Molly was listening, he harassed her that Till had ruined his life, expressed no remorse, and said Emmett Till is dead. I don't know why he can just stay dead. I'm sorry, sir. How did she ruin your life? You ruined your life when you decided to go to somebody's house, kidnap a 14-year-old child, kill him, basically beat him to death. You ruined your own life. She didn't have nothing to do with you. You made the choice. You pay the consequences. In 1996, documentary filmmaker Keith Bankshamper, who was greatly moved by Till's open casket photographs, started background research for a feature film he planned to make about Till's murder. He arrested that as many as 14 people may have been involved, including Karen Bryan, who by his point had remarried. Most Wright heard someone with a lighter voice affirm that Till was the one in his front yard immediately before Ryan and Millie drove away. What the boy Bishop spent the next 9 years producing the untold story of Emmett Lewis Till, released in 2003. The same year, PBC aired an installment of American Experience titled The Murder of Emmett Till. In 2005, CBS journalist Ed Barely aired 60-minute report investigating the Till murder, part of which showed him tracking down Carolyn Bryant at her home in Greenville, Mississippi. In 1991, book Bright, written by Stephen J. Riffer, another by Christopher Mattress in 2002, and Mimi Till Molly's memoirs the next year, all pose questions as to who was involved in the murder and cover-up. Federal authorities in the 21st century worked to resolve the questions about the intentionality of the body pulled from the Tallahatchie River. In 2004, the U.S. Department of Justice announced that it was reopening the case to determine whether anyone other than Millie and Brian was involved. David T. Pedio, a professor of the University of Alabama, states that Till murder has the Medinicky quality like the Kennedy section. The DOJ had undertaken the investigation numerous cold cases dating to the civil rights movement in the hope of finding new evidence in other murders as well. Till's body was exhumated in the Cook County coroner conducted an autopsy in 2005 using DNA from Till's relatives, dental compassion to images taken of Till, and autopsychology analyzing the exhumed body was possibly defined as that of Till. I don't know what this, whatever. At least we were all right. That was his body. I don't know who body else would have been. It had extensive cranial damages, a broken left femur, and 2 broken wrists. Medical fragments found in skulls were consistent with bullets being fired from a .45 caliber gun. And in February 2007, a Lee Ford County grand jury composed primarily of black jurors and employed by Josie Chills, a black prosecutor, found no credible basis for Benjamin's claim that 14 people took part in Till's abduction and murder. Bankshamp was angry with the finding. David Beadle and Juan Williams, who worked on the reading materials for the Eyes on the Prize documentary, were critical of Bankshamp for trying to reverse his story, taking attention away from other cold cases. The grand jury failed to find significant cause for changes against Carolyn Bryan Donnet. Neither the FBI nor the grand jury found any credible evidence that Henry Lee Logus, undefined by Bankshamp, has suspected who could be charged as any role in the crime. Other than Langos, Bankshamp refused to name any of the people alleged were involved. The first highway mark remembering Emmett Till React in 2006 was defaced with the KKK and the complete cover with black paint. In 2007, 8 marks were created at the site associated with Till's. Launching the mark at the river spot where Till's body was found was torn down in 2008, presumably thrown in the river. A replacement sign received more than 100 bullet holes over the next few years. Another replacement was installed in June 2018, and in the July it was vandalized by bullets. 3 of the University of Mississippi students were suspended from their fraternity after posing in front of the bullet really marked with guns and uploading a photo to Instagram. As stated by the report, Jerry Mitchell, is not clear whether the friendly students shot the sign or are simply posting before it. In 2019, a fourth sign was re-erected. It's made of steel white, 500 pounds, is over 1 inch thicker, and is said it by manufacturer to be indestructible. In 2017, a historian, Arthur Timothy Thompson, released details of 2008 interview with Carlin Bryan, during which he alleged she had disclosed that Bryan had forbidden parts of her testimony at the trial. According to Tom's account of the interview, Bryan rejected her testimony that Till had grabbed her around her wrist and uttered obscene, saying that part's not true. The jury did not hear Bryan's testimony at the trial, as the judge had ruled it inadmissible, but the court prosecutor heard the defense wanted Bryan's testimony as evidence for a possible appeal in case of a conviction. And in 2007 interview, the 72-year-old Bryan said she could not remember the rest of the events that occurred between her and Till in the grocery store. Thompson also reported her saying nothing the boy did could ever justify what happened to him. Thompson said that Roy had been abusive towards Carolyn, and it was clear she was frightened of her husband. Thompson believed Bryan embellished her testimony under consecutive consequences. Bryan described Millie as a domineering and brutal and not a kind man. An additional in the New York Times said regarding Bryan's admission, the portion of her testimony were false. This admission is a reminder of how black lives were sacrificed to white lives in places like Mississippi. It also raises a new question of why no one was brought to justice in the more notorious radical motive murder of the 20th century, despite extensive investigation by the FBI. The New York Times quote Willie Parker, a cousin of Till's, who said, quote, "I was hoping that one day she would admit it, so it mattered to me that she did, and gives me some satisfaction. It's important to people understanding how the world of a white person against a black person was law, and a lot of black people lost their lives because of it. It really speaks to history. It showed what black people went through in those days," end quote. However, the recanting claim made by Thompson was not in his tape recording of the interview. Quote, "It was true that part is not tape because I was setting up the tape recorder," end quote. Thompson said the support Thompson provided to back up his claim was in head ready know that he said had been made at the time. A report to Congress in March 2018, the U.S. State Department of Justice stated that it was reopening the investigation to Till's death due to a new information. In December of 2021, the DO announced that it had closed the investigation case. In June 2022, an unserved arrest warrant for Carolyn, known now as Carolyn Bryan Dahman, dated August 29, 1955, and signed by the Lee Floyd County Clerk, was discovered in a courthouse basement by a member of the Emmett Till Legacy Foundation. Following discovery, Till's family called for Dahman's arrest. However, District Attorney declined to charge Dahman and said that there was no new evidence to reopen the case. In August 2022, a grand jury calculated that there was significant evidence indicted to Dahman. In December 22, Bowling Green County Council an annual Christmas parade scheduled for December 3 in 2020 due to the threats of violence against groups who plan to prosecute outside Dahman's home in an apartment in Silver Lane, Bowling Green. The prostate took place peacefully. Hold on, guys. In 2022, I Am More Than a World Whistle, the 99-page memoir of Karen, was copied and given to New One by an anonymous source. The text had been given to University of North Carolina to privately hold it until 2036. The memoir had been prepared by Donna's daughter-in-law, Marshall Bryan, who had shared the material with Tommy Thompson, with the understanding that Thompson would edit the memoir. However, Thompson said there had not been so much agreement in place. The memoir in the Southern Historical Collection at the University of North Carolina Chapel Liberty achieves within access restrict for 20 years or into Dahman's death. Dahman died on April 25th of 2023 at the age of 88. And that is the saddest story of Emmett's Till. This video was long, y'all. I haven't done a long video in a while. This video was long, but this case, it completely breaks my heart. He didn't get the justice that he deserved. She lied. Everything that she said he did to her did not happen. He could not pronounce the B. So for him to pronounce it when he wanted bubblegum, his mom taught him how to whistle. So, mind you, in Mississippi, as an African American, especially a child, if you whistle and there's a white woman, they're going to take it the wrong way. It's just a really, really sad story. Guys, I'm telling y'all, there's pictures of his body. I'm going to just let y'all know if y'all want to go look at it. But I'm warning y'all right now, that picture, it is just horrible. Horrible. And for people to sit there and say he's still alive, that's not him, that's not his body, and then for these two pieces of trash, luckily they're dead. And I'm sorry, not sorry, but I hope the wife is in hell because of your lie, because you lied on this child that did not say anything to you, did not speak to you, did not grab you. 14-year-old, and your husband decided to kill him, and he lost his life. And now you want to sit here and act like we're not going to forgive you? Now you want to admit that you lied? No, ma'am. No. Allegedly, they wanted to put her in jail before she passed away. But allegedly, they're like, oh, she's too old. We can't do that to her. I don't care if you're 100 years old, boo-boo. I really don't. Go ahead. This 14-year-old lost his life for no reason. No reason. And the fact that these two white people, man, trash, were being protective, because they were being protected. You cannot sit here and tell me they changed their names. They were hidden by the government or wherever they went. They lived a life of non-insistent. They stayed quiet. Like, how is that justice? And then y'all still needed to prove. We all knew that was him. We all knew that was Emmett. But y'all had to dig him up just so it could be proved by DNA that was him. People, I don't understand. I really don't. And this story, it's a hate crime. You cannot tell me any different. And I wish that they would have gotten the death penalty, because obviously they needed to be in prison, because they were still acting up even after. It sucks. It really sucks, guys. But that is it for today. This video was long, and I am so... My throat hurts. But let me know what you think in the comments, and tell me what other cases y'all want me to talk about. It could be a hate crime. It could be a celebrity death. Anything y'all want me to talk about, let me know. And I will write it down. Bye.